What's up, homies? This is episode 2 of Manifest Destiny. I'm here with my boy Phil.
How's it
Um,
going?
this is take two. Minor setback technologically. I kind of failed us a little bit, so we're gonna have another shot at this. Phil's gonna take over. He's gonna ask me a question. I wasn't supposed to know what the question was, and I had a good 3 minutes of talking about it before this, but here we are again.
Yeah,
We're new at this. Give us some time. We'll
we're
figure it out.
figuring it out. Yep. It's not as much just a single question. It's kind of a series of questions. Stuff that you'll care about in the sports world, stuff that I care about, obviously. Um, and it has to do with the Olympics, and it has to do with kind of the perception of where we should go with wokeness in on and off the field. So I'll jump right into it here. Uh, the U.S. was heavy favorites to even to win the Olympics in soccer. They had their one of their first matches in the preliminary rounds today, and they had a 3-0 loss to Sweden. And Sweden's not a nobody team; like they are good, but U.S. was heavy favorites. I mean, and losing 3-0 in a game of soccer in the Olympic stage is pretty big.
Yeah, I know all of our fans won't be big soccer people, so like in the realm of like other sports, that's like getting beat by like 35 and never having a chance in a football game. Like that is I worked college soccer, I worked for the athletic department, worked a ton of games. When you lose 3-0, you were handled the whole game. There was never a chance that you were going to win that.
100%. Yeah, it was big. Like I remember FIFA Cup, like I want to say 6 years ago, men's Germany won by like I think it was like 5-0 or 6-0, and that was like they equated it to like 120 point blowout in the NBA or something.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So a lot of people are putting a lot of pressure on the U.S. team to kind of all stand united right now because there was a big chunk of the team that kneeled during the national anthem. And it's not the first time the women's soccer team, the U.S. women's soccer team, has had some flack for protesting during the national anthem or on and off the field in general. I think, in my opinion, there's kind of two different sections. I think that I feel like in the Olympic setting is going to be a little different than when you're at home playing for a major league team. But when they were in the FIFA Cup, the Women's Cup a couple years ago, they took a lot of flack because a few of the members were given an American flag after they won the World Cup, and they dropped it on the field, which to a lot is disrespectful, including myself. A lot of people died for that flag, is how I feel, and throwing it on the ground, which is how a lot of people perceived. They really just didn't seem to care about it. Was taken really badly. So my question is, I guess, jumping into here, do you think that this protesting and the kind of fight for social justice and all this stuff on the field is going to hurt their performance long term? Do you think that it did hurt their performance in this loss to Sweden? And do you think that where do you think we should go from here?
I don't know that it necessarily hurts their performance. As a fan of the Olympics, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm a huge soccer fan or that I love cheering for the women's team. I mean, I have cheered for the women's team in the Olympics. That's when I watch. I don't watch the World Cup. I don't watch anything else. But I watch the Olympics because it's the United States and they're representing the United States in the Olympics, one of the biggest events in the world, probably the biggest sporting event in the entire world
Mm-hmm.
every 4 years. And so I care about my country and I want my country to win. And to me, when they're sitting there kneeling in the anthem, which in other settings, like I don't have near as big of a problem with it, but you are representing the United States. That is literally your job. You're being paid by the United States to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they don't get paid a lot, but none of the athletes in the Olympics get paid a lot to be in the Olympics. It's mostly sponsors, things like that.
Yeah.
But you are being paid and sponsored to represent the United States of America. That's why you were there. There is no other reason. And if you can't stand up for 3 minutes of a song or 2 minutes of a song to support your country, then I don't feel like you should be there. I feel like your job is to show respect for your country. And if you can't do that for 2 minutes, then you don't deserve the platform of being there. And I know that a lot of the people on the team are really good, and that's how they get away with it.
Yep.
But to me, it's still like, okay, lose it. If you're going to lose 3-0 to Sweden, anyways, you might as well bring people that are going to respect the country.
I agree. And the way I feel kind of about it is in my opinion, no athletes that go to the Olympics should disrespect their country in that way. And I know that Sometimes they claim, when a lot of people are protesting the national anthem, they're not saying, oh, like, we hate our country. They're saying, like, we're trying to show, solidarity for some certain issues. And I get that. But I don't think that when you go to the Olympics that you should have anything to do other than 100% support of your country. Like, you are there for that job. Um, I think that in the case of, like, some major league sports, that um, you there are times where I think that protesting should be allowed, should be in fact encouraged, because off the field especially. But I think in terms of being at the Olympics, like you said, you're there to represent your country. You're there to show that, okay, we are going to try to be the best. And I think that there's so many other countries that have no one protesting, when in fact they have so many more issues than the United States. And we're not perfect. We do have issues, but I find it sad to see when our athletes make the biggest scene on a world stage of some smaller issues in our countries, when there's other countries out there that are, there's literally slavery still going on in other countries, child slavery, racial slavery. There are literal um, work camps in China, but you would never see a Chinese athlete disrespecting their anthem. And that might be just because they're going to get killed as soon as they
Yeah.
step off the plane.
I mean, part of that is a good thing about America is these people can go, and we think it's absolutely stupid. And I mean, like, there's a lot of America that would agree, like, okay, kneeling during the anthem is stupid, and we hate that. And
Yeah.
they can go and do it, and then they can come back, and they're still treated the same, because that is one amazing aspect of our country. You can say what you want, you can do what you want, and you're not treated differently.
You're not going to be jailed for it.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, some people might talk smack on you on Twitter, but they do that for basically anything that public officials do. Like, it's not.
That's fair. So moving forward here, I think we're on the same page we don't think it's a good idea. But do you think that it's going to long term hurt teams' performances that otherwise could be performing better? Like, do you think long term the protesting is taking more of their time and effort and their focus rather than focusing on their sport?
I wouldn't go that far to what you said last, but I will say that something I think that could affect their performance is soccer is a big chemistry sport. And if you have some people that are there to represent their country and they feel like, oh, these people don't care about what we're representing, they don't care about our country, I do feel like that could cause some issues in the locker room more than anything. More than I think that anyone that goes to the Olympics to make it to that point, you are fully committed to your craft.
Oh yeah.
They're spending all the time that they can practicing all of that stuff, and I don't think it takes a lot of effort necessarily to take the time to protest. But there is the aspect of, okay, why are these girls doing that and the other girls
I'm
being
not.
like, yeah.
I agree. I think it would be any sport. Any sport. I mean, even like, me being familiar with swimming, it's every single sport has some type of team camaraderie part to it. And if, like, of course there's always going to be people who disagree and have different views on stuff. But when that becomes the focus of almost why you're there, and there are a few athletes like Megan Rapinoe that's been the most vocal about it. I feel like the media and her on social media have made that her main focus. She talks more about her protesting and what she does off the field than what she does on the field.
I would agree with that, because I don't know how many people, like, you would go and be like, hey, who are the top 5 women's soccer players of all time? And for the U.S. national team.
Mm-hmm.
And you would list like Mia Hamm, Hope Solo, people like that.
Yep.
Megan Rapinoe is absolutely one of the top 5 best players to play for the U.S. women's national team ever.
Yeah.
And probably top 3.
Mm-hmm.
But most people know her because she talks out against politics. Like, she's not even known for the sport she plays. I mean, people that follow soccer absolutely know who she is. But, like, casual fans of the Olympics know her because of her social justice policies and from Subway commercials, and not because she's one of the best soccer players to ever live.
I agree. And I think later on down the road, she might regret that as her legacy. Maybe she won't, and maybe she'll be happy with being able to voice her opinion, and I'm happy for her to be able to do that. But I think that it's not the space to do it.
Yeah.
You need to be focusing on your sport and representing your country at the best at the best caliber, because you are literally there because you are the best caliber in your specific event.
And that's where I would touch on too. Like if you're playing, like I'm sure she's in a soccer league. I don't follow soccer close enough to know where she plays during her, like not during the Olympic or not during the World Cup.
Hmm.
If she goes there and she kneels during the anthem, I don't really care. Like that's your prerogative. You're not representing the country. I still don't necessarily like it, but it's not, to me, it's not like you're not representing the United States in that moment. You are just a player on a team that can do whatever they want and show your freedom of speech. I don't agree with you, but you have that freedom. To me, at the Olympics, that should not be an option. You are literally there to represent your country.
Yeah. What do you think about so the IOC, which is the International Olympic Committee, has allowed some of um, their rules that they originally put in place on protesting, on expressing, your beliefs on different political issues and activist issues. They laxed those differently from a few months ago, where they said no, absolutely zero protesting. We're not going to allow that. They laxed those because a lot of athletes complained. What do you think is gonna come of that? Do you think that's going to be the new norm, or do you think that going forward here that they're going to see like, okay, people don't like this because, for example, they now allow political messages to be on like warm up jerseys and stuff like that, not the actual competition like jerseys, or like, they wouldn't allow it on a swim cap, they wouldn't allow it on a tracksuit, whatever, but they do allow it on like the clothing you are wearing off the field, like your warm up jerseys, all that stuff. Um, do you think that is going to turn a lot of viewers away to where they're going to regret it, go back to their original ruling and just not allow it?
I don't know that they will, just because I think the Olympics has always kind of been a place where politics have been a thing. I know it's kind of seems like usually it was bigger issues in the past, like, and I'm not putting down anything that people are promoting as far as social justice and stuff goes. But when you think about like Jesse Owens back in the day in history, where like those were big iconic turning points for people of color getting into the Olympics and winning the Olympics, like
Hmm.
I feel like that should be an option. Those should be allowed. And like there's other countries too that are in the Olympics now. Like I wish they would protest a little more. I wish they'd be like, our country sucks. I just don't think people in America realize how good they have it, and that's why it kind of, from our perspective, is like, hey, like, what are you protesting? The fact that you have the freedom to protest and you come home and everything's okay, because if some runner from China did that, they'd literally get executed when they got back.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the problems here are smaller to where we kind of, minimalize them in our heads because it's not as big of a deal as what other countries are going through. But I really feel like all countries should have the right to somewhat politicize what they're going through.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I think that I think that there are very few countries where that would actually happen, though. They're
The ones that it's okay, or
yeah,
the ones that like
the,
you shouldn't be
yeah,
protesting, your country's amazing.
yeah, the ones in the Western countries that allow that are going to be the ones that do it. And I'm wondering, I'm really wondering what differences we'll see from this Olympics, because I think we're going to see a lot of it. I really do think we're going to see. I mean, in probably every sport, there's going to be some type of, very visible display of you know anti-America sentiment. Like that is going to happen. Um, do you think that in the long run, other countries, say China, for instance, who's also very competitive in the Olympics, they might get the upper hand because they have athletes who truly believe in their country, or at least seem to, because that's what they understand about their country. Do you think that will give them an upper hand in any events, because they're like, look at these morons, look at these morons, like that's what they're worried about. They work their entire lives to get here, and now they're just worried about throwing it away because they're protesting a national anthem, whatever. That's kind of what I feel like.
I'm not sure. I don't know if that'll really be an issue, because I think that once you get there, you're an athlete and you're going to be competitive and you're just going to be like, hey, like this is my moment. And you're not probably even going to be thinking about the shirt you're wearing or anything you're doing.
Yeah.
But maybe I could see it maybe like on two people that are on exact even playing field. Like, going into this race, these guys have about the same times, things like that. And the
Hmm.
person that's like it's more of has the motivation to represent their country than it is. I think that the other thing distracts. It's like, okay, you played sports in high school. I'm sure you can think of this, but like even like going into games that I had at home, like I played high school basketball. That's what I'm thinking of right now. and you had a game at home where you knew there was going to be a lot of fans there, and you're like, man, I got to represent my city, I got to represent my school. This is a big deal to me, and that's extra motivation that I used to play a little bit better than I would have probably at any other game.
Yeah.
And I think that people that are really there to represent their country, that could just be a little boost that they have that gets them over the hump. I don't think that it's necessarily that the one side's a negative,
Yeah.
but being there for your country is definitely something that would motivate you more.
I think yeah, I think you can tie that into the pride thing you were talking about, and being prideful. Like, when I was an athlete in college, you have your school pride. Like, you want to beat the crap out of your rivals because you are focused on, like, no, we're the better school. Like, we are the better school. And I think that's where it's going to hurt. I think that there are so many athletes that have accepted the notion that America's this evil place, this America's this unfair place, which, when you really break it down in comparison to other countries, is pitiful, in my opinion. But I think it's going to come down to, there will be neck and neck races. There will be neck and neck games where a team or an individual or a relay or whatever will come down to, well, there's a deep down motivation in serious athletes at that level where you're going to go, you know what, I'm going to do it for my freaking country. And when you don't respect or you don't value your country, you don't have that. Like, I couldn't imagine being in college and being a part of a team where I'm like, yeah, I'm miserable. Like, I hate this place. Like, that would not be fun. I wouldn't have fun representing it. But because I loved the schools that I competed at, I enjoyed competing for those schools. And my motivation wasn't only for my individual gain. It was also for, like, I want to put on for my school. Like, I want to break a new record. I want to make sure that our relay is the best. I want to make sure that we look the best on this big stage. And I think that's where it really could come down to. I do agree that it's not going to do a big change, but I think in a neck and neck race, it possibly could.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So, um, you know, where do you support off field? Like, say, you know, IOC changes their rules back, because, I could see this being a big downfall this year. Do you think they could ever come back around, say, the next 4 years, say, no, this didn't work out well. This was a big mess. The only media surrounding it was all about, this activism stuff. Do you think that it could ever come around, change, go back to normal, and we see a more united front within sports, and that could spread into, you know, national sports, NFL, NBA, NHL, whatever? Do you think that's ever going to come back?
Well, I mean, you see with the NFL now, the NFL, there was not a lot of stuff like, off the field there was, and people, and players did some protesting, but on the field last year you didn't see anything. Like, there was not anything going on as far as social justice goes between the time the game started and the time the game ended.
Yeah.
And they stopped filming the national anthem because they realized that was a big divisive thing, and they're like, all right, if we just cut this out.
Mm-hmm.
And they did play a couple, but they only played it if everybody was standing. I don't know
Yeah.
if you noticed that, but what the NFL said is political loses money. That's all they decided. They're like, it's not that we have anything against your movement. It's not that we have anything against this. We're a business and we want to make money. And the only sports franchise right now that's gaining viewers out of the major markets is the NFL. The NBA has about half viewership this year. The MLB has less viewership, and part of that is that the games are
NHL is too, though.
less
I
quality.
think the NHL is gaining viewers.
Gaining viewers?
I think so.
I don't know that for a fact. That's why I just used the three
compared
for
to those
sure.
three major ones. Yeah.
But so my point is that now that's not all causation. Like, part of the game has fell off. The NBA quality was not as good this year due to
Mhm.
injuries, due to everything else.
crowd size.
But I think that plays a part. I think it would be irresponsible to be like, that has nothing to do with it, because that really has some people in Middle America, especially, that are like, it's not that they're even against the cause that's going for. Like,
Mhm.
I'm watching sports for a release, and I still watch sports. I don't care. I will just be like, okay, I'm tired of seeing it, but I don't care. Like, I'm still gonna watch the game because I enjoy watching the game.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people where if you're in that middle ground where it's like, okay, I kind of like watching basketball, but I could watch something else, and you're like, oh, well, this is just a bunch of activism stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go watch Modern Family on ABC.
Yeah.
And I think that revenue stream could be one way that the sports are just like, okay, like, we got to stop this.
Well, here's a good point that I've asked myself is, we all know they're all about money. all these big corporations that
Oh,
put on for
100%.
Pride Month, they put on for Black History Month, and all these other holidays and stuff that come up. There, it's all 100% about money. And if you don't think that, you're ignorant, and quite frankly, you're completely blind to the fact that these big corporations don't care about these individual problems.
It's not necessarily 100% about money.
Okay,
It
what is
also can be about power.
Okay.
It's about money or power.
Okay, well,
But it's not like
money breeds
genuinely,
power.
yeah,
Money
it's not
breeds
like
power.
genuinely, oh, we really care about these people. No, corporations are corporations for a reason.
Yeah, it's
There
a
are
business.
people within that corporation that definitely care about the cause and definitely feel that way. But
100%. But
the
you don't,
HR company-
corporations don't make decisions based on a single individual or a feeling.
No,
they make this all of their decisions based on revenue stream. So my point is, do you think that they would lose money if they went back to straight up not allowing any protests, any activism? You just focus on literally only the game, and if you don't, you're not televised, you're not this, that, and the other. Do you think they would go back to making as much that they did, 10 years ago, or more money, or do you think it would hurt them? Do you think that bringing back the audience that left because they were tired of the activism, bringing them back would be beneficial to losing those that would say, no, like, this isn't right? Or do you think that still a majority of people would watch it because, well, they're not being activists on the court, they're not being activists on the field, but they can be elsewhere? So what do you think would happen? Because I wonder if they tried that, I really think that they would see a lot of money come back. I really do.
I don't know about basketball. I think basketball to me is 50-50 in my head because most NBA fans are younger. Like, NBA fans support a younger generation, and a lot of the younger generation thinks that, like, that stuff is cool. They like seeing their athletes speak out about social justice and things like that. I'm not going to even say important. I think they think it's cool because I don't think that a lot of people our age really do the research on what they're talking about, and they just support these things.
You don't think? I guarantee it.
But they support them because they know that other people do. And so, like, they saw, oh, the NBA is not going to support social justice. Well, they must be awful people. We hate them. It's not about money. It's because they're just bad people, and white people run the league, and they're taking away this thing from all the people in the league. And to me, that's not what it would be. It'd be like, hey, we want to start making money again. So that one could be 50-50. Major League Baseball, 100%, they'd start making more money.
Yeah.
I don't know what baseball was thinking. I don't know if it was like, we're trying to attract a new fan base and we can use this. But their fan base was very much, we want to watch baseball and we don't want a bunch of
it's called
justice.
The pastime sport for a reason. Like, you don't want, like, and I'm not ragging on baseball, but like, when you go to watch baseball, you don't want to do anything but just turn your brain off and watch baseball. Like, when I go to games, that's what I like doing. That's what's enjoyable about it. It's a long game. You just get to chill out and watch people hit dingers and make cool plays. What about the NFL though? Like, the NFL, in my opinion, is a very blue collar league. You see where the pockets of biggest support of the NFL and the NFL teams and actually supporting your specific local team. It's the Midwest. It is the center of the country, and the center of the country is also the group of people and the areas of the country that doesn't like seeing people protest the national anthem, for example. So I think in the NFL, you would see the biggest comeback.
Well, the NFL is making money. The NFL.
I'm not saying they're losing.
I feel like
I'm saying they would see a bigger spike in bringing viewers back and seeing more money being made.
I would argue that the NFL already cut the politicalness out from 0 to 0. I don't think that you see that during the game. You don't see it from players. You don't see it from coaches. You don't see any of that. Or at least I didn't last year.
I mean,
2 years ago it was really bad. And then last year they're like, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. I mean, you would see a commercial or two during the game or something of that status, which I don't have a problem with that either. I'm already not paying attention to the commercial. I don't care what you put in there. But as far as, like, it's not like the NBA where you have every kind of social justice thing. Like, the coaches wearing a mask that says stop COVID or making something else political where it's like, okay, like, cool, that's fine. You're wearing a mask when you're all vaccinated and standing 8 feet apart. And then you get on the court and you literally sweat and breathe on each other.
You're in the best shape of any human being on the planet.
Yeah, but it's really important that you social distance on the bench and then go in the game and stand 6 inches away.
Yeah,
that's
spitting
a big deal.
on each other and sweating. And no, that makes
definitely not
sense.
how diseases are spread.
Yeah, but that's a topic for another day. Let's be honest here. that could be 50 topics.
Well, but that to me is the same thing because you see things like that where the NBA has just tried to be political. And I'm not saying that aspects of COVID are like some aspects of COVID like that are political, where it's like you're already vaccinated, everybody in there is vaccinated, especially in the bubble when like everyone that was in there was COVID tested every day. Like you
Mhm.
don't have it.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
It's all for money because you look at the
But the
the
argument is
NBA.
they're losing money.
I know, but I really don't think at they realized that at the time. They realized after the fact they're like, oh my God, we're losing money, but we cannot change our stance on this because then you're gonna piss those off. I think that already were pissed off and like this is annoying, this is BS. We don't want to see this. Just get back to the normal game. And you're also gonna piss those off that are like, well, we did like it. And not necessarily, I guess they weren't watching it as much and they weren't as engaged as someone, an older generation who would be able to watch it on TV and actually engage in bringing them revenue, commercial advertisements, stuff like that. But I think it would have pissed off so many people, them flip-flopping, that they would have seen even fewer viewers. So that's why they, at the season mark, then they changed it because they're like, okay, new season, we're gonna do something different.
I totally agree with that, and I think you're right. Where the people that were still watching would have just stopped watching, but I think that you have to give Roger Goodell a big thumbs up. Like a lot of people hate on Roger Goodell, and he has done some idiotic things throughout the course of his tenure, like making himself the disciplinary guy. That was stupid. But as far as printing money goes, that dude is a genius. The NFL has maintained a complete surplus. Like it came out that every team last year off of their TV deal made $380+ million.
That's crazy.
And the salary cap's 190. So they're basically doubling their money. I mean, they pay other people, they pay coaches, people on staff, things like that.
Yeah.
But the NFL prints money. They are really good at what they do. And I think a big part of that last year was they're like, okay, we're not going to do this political stuff during the game. And the players have complete freedom. Like there's a bunch of people on Twitter and other places where players speak out and the NFL doesn't like fine them. They let them do whatever they want off the field, which they should. That is completely your prerogative. Whatever you want to do off the field, you should speak up for what you believe.
I agree. So what do you think about the idea that a lot of the players in the NFL, especially because the NFL has cracked down on it the most, have said like, oh, it's a modern day slave trade. Like they tell us what to do. Like in my opinion, it's a business, and you work for that business. You are paid because you are employed in the NFL. Like truly, that's how it is. So yeah, a boss or a corporation can tell you what to do. They are free to do so. They are free to tell you how you can act in their workplace. And technically, you are in their workplace while you're playing on the field.
What my point would be is I think that anybody that was actually ever enslaved would just be the most pissed off, offended person in the history of the world. Like, okay, you're going to sit there and you're going to call yourself a slave when you make $20 million a year. Like you are being paid, you are being compensated more than 99.9% of the country.
Of anyone in history. Anyone.
Well, yeah, but I mean, obviously, you make more money now, so
99.9.
But my point is that you sit there and you make more money than anybody, literally almost anybody outside of and yes, the people that own the NFL teams make a crap ton of money.
Yeah,
they make so much money that paying the players $40 million a year doesn't feel like anything. But at the same time, if those people don't make the business decisions they did throughout the course of their lifetime, you don't have the chance to make $20 million to play football. Like
I agree.
I would sit there and I would not be near as good. This is not the claim that I'm making. I would play football for $500K a year easy. I would play football for $70,000 a year just to sit there and play football.
Yeah.
You can't complain to me about making $10 to $20 million a year and say I'm a slave. Like
that
doesn't connect. And I think that that's a big reason where people got disconnected. Like you can't connect with an audience, even the people that you're appealing to when you're saying, I feel like a slave and I'm making $20 million a year.
I agree. Well, on that bombshell, that was a pretty good one. It was a good conversation there. A little less humorous than the last one, but I'm glad we got into it. But anyways, we thank you guys for listening. And if you want to find us, we're going to be on Spotify and YouTube for now. We're going to try to find some other platforms.
We're also on Apple Music.
Apparently, we're on Apple Music.
I'm the tech guy. So.
Yeah. I just kind of show up with the questions. Anyways, so you can find us there. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find this episode and the first one, which is titled Pilot, on our YouTube channel. And again, if you made it here to the end, I guess we apologize.
We're sorry.